You're listening to The White Rabbit, conversations on the art of presenting in a rather noisy world. Your hosts are Matt Krause and Alper Rozanes. Matt helps leaders of international companies speak, write, and present with confidence. Alper is a communications trainer and a startup investor with a diverse portfolio of companies in Barcelona. If you like this podcast, please share it with friends and colleagues. Now, on to Matt and Alper for today's conversation.
Alper, last week we were talking about AI, Volume 1, and it was basically Matt spouting off his opinions. And then you said, hey, on the next episode, I want you to back some of that stuff up with some data and statistics. And it reminded me of a quote. You know that Two Bobs podcast with David C. Baker and Blair Enns? Do you know that one?
Like the one which I listen to twice every day.
Yeah, I love that podcast. One of the things that Blair Enns says on that podcast, you know how usually on that podcast, David C. Baker kind of, he appears to be getting angry at Blair Enns. You know how they do that sometimes?
Yeah.
So Blair Enns will make some claims, and David C. Baker will ask him for the data to back up those claims. And there will be a moment of silence on the podcast, and Blair Enns will say, well, David, I never do research. So
You did not do your research, did you?
I did not do my research.
Okay.
So let's talk about something else today. And
just like that.
Just like that. Yeah, we
not like I feel bad. My apologies to the audience, etc., etc. No, let's just switch gears and talk about something else.
Just switch gears and as smoothly as possible. Just hope that people forget.
Okay.
There's been no data provided to back up the claims.
Okay.
So the thing that I wanted to ask you about was, how does this AI thing, how does this affect you as a slide designer? Because you need to, the one of the central needs that you have is that when you pass off a slide deck to a customer, if that customer asks, can I use these images? You need to be able to answer yes, right?
Well, I think it depends on the situation. If you're giving them a finished document, let's say a presentation on a PDF file,
okay,
technically they don't own the images because, as far as I know, they don't own the images because they are embedded onto the PDF. And unless they use tools like extracting them, they wouldn't have access to the original files in the first place.
Okay.
So that is one scenario. Another scenario would be where I deliver an editable presentation file where they can take the images and use them elsewhere. In that case, what I do is I purchase the photos and transfer the ownership to the client, which means I cannot use those photos in my future works.
Okay. So AI, it sounds like a process that AI would be throwing a monkey wrench into. And
it looks like it, yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about how you, in your slide design work, skirt or somehow compensate for this issue.
Well, it's very simple. I don't use AI in the slide design process. I use AI for other things, especially for organizing my thoughts or throwing it some like not unclassified, but unorganized bunch of notes and asking it for help to come up with a structure. But other than that, in the visual aspect of any presentation design work, it's not a tool that I use. I don't think it is in that sufficiency yet. And I have tried it, by the way, and there are so many like the image generating platforms that are available today. Because when I designed the slides, okay, here I need a photo of someone, let's say, working on her computer.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did with AI was create a prompt, and I was as specific as possible. But then I ended up receiving these images with people having 3 arms, extended body parts coming out of it was completely unusable. Is it going to improve? Yes, I believe it's going to improve. And maybe one day you will be able to get exactly the image that you're looking for.
Okay.
And what happens then, as far as I know, you and I talked about this before starting the recording, but at the present day, there was this, it was a court decision. I don't remember exactly, or was it the Copyright Office in the US, which said non-human generated works are copyrighted. Do you remember that?
Yeah, yeah. So, and the court decision was that non-human generated images could not be copyrighted. Was that correct?
Okay, both of us are walking on thin ice, so let's not make any binding declarations. But
Okay.
the general idea was that if it's not generated, if it is not created by a human,
Uh-huh.
there is no copyright protecting it. In
Okay.
that case, I would assume, again, this is my biased personal opinion, I would assume that you should be able to include it in the presentation and send it to the client.
Okay.
But again, currently you would also face the consequences of sending like a four-armed person
Yeah.
in the presentation and expect some backlash from the customer.
All right. So it sounds like trying to get involved with this AI legal morass is going to really put a crimp on you being able to do your work and put your food on the table. So how do you get around that? Like for example, if I'm a slide designer and I use a slide in a presentation,
Mhm.
can I pass that presentation on to a client?
You mean you're designing a slide, you purchase some stock photos to put on it, and you're sending the file. Is that the
Yeah.
scenario?
Yeah,
Okay.
I am designing some slides. I go to, Pixabay or something like that, and I get some stock photos and I put them into the presentation and I send the presentation to my client.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Pixabay and other sites like it are uncopyrighted, which means you don't need a license to use the photos that you download from those websites like
Okay.
Pixels or Pixabay. So in those photos, you're completely out in the clear.
Okay.
However, if you purchase a stock photo, like from iStock Photos or Deposit Photos or something like that, by the way, this podcast is nowhere near associated with those sponsored by
Yeah.
by those companies. Full
Uh-huh.
disclaimer. What you can do is you can use the image in the presentation, but the client has the right to use the image as part of the design. So technically, they are not allowed to, say, extract the photo, use it someplace else, because they're not. When you sell your service, you're selling your design service, and the photo comes with it. So
Okay.
they have the right to use it.
Okay.
But you cannot, for example, the client cannot tell you, hey, we like these images that you use in the presentation. Can you send us the raw file so we can use them elsewhere? No, they cannot ask that. And you shouldn't respond to that positively, because you will be violating the terms of the stock photo agreement. What you can do alternatively, if the client insists, is either transfer the license, so you lose your access to the license in
Uh-huh.
the future, or they can also buy the licenses and they can use it in any way that they want.
Okay, so let me see if I'm hearing you correctly. So with this AI morass, you've got a couple issues with these AI generated images. One is that now, at least, they are producing AI is producing weird images. Like you get, a woman with three arms, or you get a guy with four legs, and
Mhm.
and of course you can't go to a client with an image like that.
Like I
So
said,
that's
there will be consequences.
yeah, there will be consequences if you try something like that. So that's the bigger issue. And then the other issue is that even if they fix that, even if the AI generated images are perfect and awesome, and you've still got the legal morass of who owns these pictures, and okay, right now some lawyer in Ohio or some court in Ohio is saying that no one owns these pictures, but some other court somewhere else is saying, well, these images are owned. And so there's all these different opinions. It's a huge morass. No one knows who to believe. And so you're saying, to avoid that, just go with the stock photography sites, the tried and true situations that you have already been using. Am I hearing you correctly about that?
I mean, that's what I do.
Uh-huh.
And I do that for the moment because the technology isn't there yet. If
Okay.
one day I need a photo of someone working on their computer with a specific screenshot, let's say,
Uh-huh.
and I can type that and it comes to me directly, flawlessly, and like without forearms, like we mentioned, yes,
Uh-huh.
then I will probably use that. But I think the previous cases that you mentioned, I think they deal with AI generated images heavily resembling actual works of art. I
Okay.
don't think they are dealing with people standing in line to buy coffee. I
Uh-huh.
think they're dealing with photos that resemble like the Starry Night, let's say, or a Picasso painting.
Okay. Okay.
I don't think, I mean, this is my complete assumption. And since per your opening, I understand that we're free to make any assumptions that we want on this podcast. So it is my completely 100% personal assumption that if you take the photo, an AI generated photo, someone standing in line to the court and say, hey, this is copyrighted, I think they would just laugh in your face.
Okay.
So I think you would be safe in that domain.
Uh, okay. So
Sorry,
we've
I
got to,
couldn't miss that chance to hit you with that.
yeah, thanks for that. All right. So we've got to wrap things up for today. So before we wrap things up, was there anything else that you wanted to mention about AI and images and slide deck design?
At the moment, I steer clear of them
Okay.
because I don't see the results that I would want to enjoy
Uh-huh.
so that I can pass them on to my client.
Okay. Okay.
I understand that this is just a matter of time.
Uh-huh.
I'm assuming that it will get better and better in the future. So, but until then, I think I'm just going to keep staying clear of it and go with the other tried and tested
Uh-huh.
sources, let's say. But the two examples that you gave, if you want to completely eliminate this issue from your life
Uh-huh.
in the slide work, go with the uncopyrighted images. I mean, there are mountains of websites out there which provide these images, and they're pretty decent in quality, not only in terms of the pixel quality, like the resolution, but also in terms of the composition of the image. Because one thing I have noticed is on the commercial stock photo
Uh-huh.
websites,
Uh-huh.
they are almost borderline cliches, like all
Okay.
these people throwing their hands in the air, with the thumbs
Uh,
up and everything. But
uh,
those examples that we mentioned, like the Pixabay, the Pexels, and like similar websites, I find them much more attractive and high quality in terms of the content of the image itself. So, and they're free. But
uh-huh.
one thing I would recommend would be, which is something that I practice if I use photos from there. I give credit to the photographer.
Okay.
If it is of course, if it is a commercial work, it wouldn't be very easy to keep the photographer's name like on the title page of a giant corporation's investor presentation.
True.
But I make sure to include it at the end. I at least make it known that
Okay.
this photo is taken by this person.
Uh,
Good
and then,
karma.
yeah, good karma. And you leave it up to the client. If the client really wants to be a jerk and stop giving credit to people and take off that last slide, they can
Yeah,
do that. But
yeah,
at least you get to go to bed and sleep soundly and know that you're a good person. Is that right?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Well, thank you, Alper. We've got to wrap it up for today.
Okay, good talking to you.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye. Thank you for listening to The White Rabbit with Matt Krause and Alper Rozanes. You can subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, or through your favorite feed.